This video is sponsored by SASE, the Society for Automation Software Engineers. Check us out for a few more words later in the video.
Let's get straight to the point. Beckhoff have released a third version of the 4026 beta called 4026.3. In this video, we'll continue our journey of exploration and discovery of the new 4026 release with looking at some additional features and functions that it adds. We'll look at POU name, write LineIDs, library parameters, library navigation, new 64-bit date and time data types, VS22 version transparency, and we'll finish off with some questions. Let's get to the fun. $4026, time for another 4026 beta video, and I know that you're probably thinking, I don't want another beta video, just give me the whole thing, when is it released, the final release, and I have no idea when that's released, but what Beckhoff have done is that they have given us a third version of the beta. So I had 2 videos before about the beta, this is the third one, and I think that's still very nice because then we can go on our nice journey and explore and look around a little bit, and that's exactly what I've been doing, and I thought I would just share a little bit of the stuff I've been playing around with and found with you. So there is a bunch of new things I want to go through with you, so without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to show you is something quite nice, which is called POU name. It's something that I think is super useful, especially if you're writing test cases. So that's what I'm going to do to demonstrate a very good use case for this POU name. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to just create a test suite with TCUnit. So I have already installed the TCUnit library here on my computer. TCUnit is available on github.com/TCUnit, a unit testing framework for Beckhoff. If you want to know more about unit testing for PLCs or unit testing in general, and more importantly about test-driven development, I provide you a link above to a course about that here on YouTube. It's completely for free. So I'm gonna add a reference to that TCUnit library, and then I'm gonna write some tests here. So you can imagine that this is our test program. We can even rename it PRG test to be very specific, and we're going to create a test suite of some sort. So, just imagine, so first of all, I'm going to rename this to test. This is where we would store our tests. And imagine we have our POU, right? So we would have a POU that does something. And we're going to create a test suite for that. So we have something test. That's going to be our test suite. We'll extend test suite, which is part of the TCUnit framework, and we'll add a test method for it, right? So we would write a test method. So this test is testing something testable. Okay. The name would normally be, given that when you're testing something that you want to test, given in your mini universe of the tiny test that you're writing. It's going to be a private method. And here in the unit testing framework, and normally when you write test using TCUnit, then you define your test by writing test, and then you do, basically you always copy this name, right? Because this name is the test itself that is part of the test suite. Then you would do test finished, and then you would do your assertion here. So you would normally, I'm not going to go through the details about how you write tests because I have a complete separate course about. But this is what you would do. You would have your subject under test here. So you would instantiate an object of the subject under test that is, in this case, a something. So you would instantiate something here, and then you would do something with something. It's a stupid name, something. Anyway. So I would do an assertion of something. So I'm just going to do an assert true here, and condition is false, right? So that's going to fail, and I'm going to have a message here, and this is just a test message. Now to my point, this is something you always have to copy and paste in, right? Or some people, they put something else here. But now here's the beauty. What you can use instead now, instead of copying this over, is a new operator called POU name, and that takes the name of the POU. So in this case, it takes the name of the instance of something test, wherever that is. It's going to be part of our program test because that's where we will instantiate it, and adds as well the test method. So it gives us this nice path for it. So this is quite nice because what we can do here now is that, we don't have to copy paste this name over every time. Every time we create a test, we give the test a name and we copy it. We just write POU name here instead. Super flexible, because that also means that if you rename your test, then this new name will automatically go in here, which is super convenient. So I think this POU name here, writing tests, is a perfect use case for it. So I'm just going to show you that it works. I'm just going to instantiate this guy. We can put, I'm just going to create a string here. So I'm just going to create a string as POU name string, which is just a string, and I'm just going to copy it over here to, this POU name here, just to show you that it actually is creating it. So we also need to call. Let's not do any assertions because then we'll get annoying messages. I'm just going to call this test method in our test suite, and we have to instantiate the test suite in our test. So for you that haven't seen my unit testing and test-driven development course, I recommend you to watch it because this probably won't make any sense for you. But if you haven't, then you should still just understand that POU name is just going to give you the whole path. So let's see whether we can, we can activate this. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything. Of course I have. This is on a virtual machine, so I need to put it on an isolated core. There we go. And we'll activate again. So this is quite nice. Let's see here. And if you go here now to this instance, then we should have the SPOU name here. And it is an empty string. That's a bad thing. That's probably because I've made some mistake. So I'm instantiated something to test. I haven't executed the TCUnit framework. Sorry. Okay, that's it. So I really wanted to press on this example because this is where I think this POU name is useful. Yeah, then you see this SPOU name is the complete search path. It's the instance, FB something to test, so it's, it's the name of the function block instance. So not the instance, but the function block itself, and the method, which is quite nice. I think this is super useful for unit testing. Definitely saving me a lot of time because I sometimes, when I'm writing tests, I change the name of the test and then I put it, I copy paste it down here, and yeah, this just makes it one step less. Okay, a small one that I discovered here is that if you go to Tools Options and you go to the settings, there is a new setting here in File Settings. Sorry, I'm confused. It is in Text Editor, maybe? No. Write Options, there it is. There's a new setting here called Write LineIDs. So we had this one we had before, separate LineIDs, which, I generally recommended to set to true because, then these annoying LineIDs that you have in the XML code, right? I mean, the whole problem is these LineIDs you have in all your POUs and DUTs. They were super annoying. I recommended you to set this to true, so you got them into a separate file that you could ignore in git ignore. But now you even have the option to not write LineIDs whatsoever. I think the name is a little confusing. Write LineIDs. If this value is false, if this value is false, even changes in white spaces or line breaks will force an online change. Okay, so I guess if the value is false, then write LineIDs are not written at all, neither to the POUs, DUTs, nor to this LineIDs, backup file or whatever it was called. So it's not written at all, which means that, I don't know what this is useful for, to be honest, because I think it makes sense to just write them, but to a place that, you can put into git ignore. So into a file that you can just ignore, that you never version control. That's the point. So I think that's the that's the perfect solution. I don't think this is necessary. At least I don't see the use case for it. If anyone has some ideas about the use case, please write a comment below. A few words from today's sponsor.
I'm very happy that SASE, the Society for Automation Software Engineers, is sponsoring this potentially very controversial video. That's because I created this community SASE for folks who care about taking software engineering principles and using them in PLCs. So if you're thinking about source control, continuous delivery, testing, this is the place where you need to come hang out. Come check us out at sase.space.
Okay, the next one here is something related to management of libraries. And if you go to references here, you have a new button here called library parameters. So, okay, just as in the last video, there seems to be some problems with scaling here. I'm running 200% scaling, but the codices environment doesn't seem to work very well with scaling. For some reason, it's stuck in the 90s where everyone had 640 by 480 resolution monitors. Nowadays, when you have 4K resolution, you have to use scaling, otherwise everything becomes so tiny. For some reason, this old codices stuff doesn't cope very well with that. I hope this will be fixed, either by codices, Beckhoff, no idea. I just want it to be possible to work with a high resolution monitor in 2024. If you go to library parameters, you'll get a list of all the parameters that are available. So parameters is a way for you, if you use a library, then you can include parameters in your library to parameterize the different function blocks. So you might have, for example, an upper size of an array in a function block, for example, but you want it to be different depending on for every application that is using that library. Before you had to go into, for example, this unit is using parameters. You had to go and then you had to find the parameter list. So for example here, there it is. Then you found it and then you changed it here. So, okay, you can't change it here anymore because the idea, it seems that you have to use this library parameters button, which is very nice because now you get everything for all your references in your application. You get all parameter lists and all the parameters directly without having to go around and look for them. So super, super good. Next thing is something very neat inside the libraries themselves. It's much easier to navigate between the different elements. So if I, for example, go to POUs here and I go to ADS, something here, something that implements an interface, then we see here, okay, you can't read it, but this function block implements an interface. And normally you would then have to go and look for this interface. So you would look around for it. In this case, I know it's in ITFs, so it's this one to kind of find it. Now they have added, so there's just links directly to, if you implement something or if you inherit from a function block or alike, they added these links, which is super convenient because then you can just jump around between the different function blocks and data types and interfaces and whatnot. So you can click here and then you get immediately to that interface. A tiny thing, but still very, very good. Next thing is an addition of 64-bit date. So LDate type, 64-bit version of LDate and time, and 64-bit version of time of day. So you get L time of day, LDate and time, and LDate, which was not available in 4024. Super convenient. So, I'm just going to see that. We're just going to look at this. The nice thing with this 64-bit version is that the 32-bit only went between 1970 and 2106. While this one goes all the way to 2262, while the date and time now not only goes from, what is it here? Yeah, it goes to 2106. This one also goes now to 2266. So quite convenient to have these type of things directly in the compiler. Though for this particular case, I have not probably had the use case yet to run something for that long. Then we have time of day. This is though very, very nice. Time of day I used previously, the 32-bit version. It has a resolution of milliseconds, while the new one, 64-bit L time of day, has a resolution in nanoseconds. So that's very convenient. So you can simply take this now and you can, let's just create it here. I have to run that. So now you can create one. At time of day, whatever, and that compiles. So very, very convenient. However, in TwinCAT 4024, you still had some other of this time and date times available. For example, LTime itself. So if you don't want to, for example, if you have a timer on, there was this version available for 64-bit version of it, the LTON, that was already available. But yeah, these slightly less used ones are also available as 64-bit versions now. So good. Another thing I want to mention is that I mentioned this already in my first video about the beta for 4026 is that, you know, now we're running the T6A shell is based on Visual Studio 2022, which is the first 64-bit version of Visual Studio. And this is very nice, of course, for many reasons. What I was always a little annoyed at with TwinCAT is that it wasn't always 100% transparent of which Visual Studio version that TwinCAT, the T6A shell was based on. But now if you go to help and go to about T6A shell, they are very, very transparent, so to speak, of what it is based on. So it is the TwinCAT XA shell 64-bit, and it says here, based on Visual Studio Community 2022. Interesting that it's not based on the shell, because as far as my understanding goes, Microsoft abandoned the shell from 2017, I think. So it's interesting that it's now based on community. Interesting how Beckhoff managed to pull this one off. Probably some interesting politics going on there, I can imagine. Anyway, it's available, and it says that it is based on version 17.7.7. And this is super good because you can actually go to the website of Microsoft and you have the Visual Studio 2022 release history. And now we can actually see the release notes for the different versions. And we can see that it is based on 17.7 and 17.7.7, right? Which is, so you have all these nice things that you would expect from release notes, right, Beckhoff? And you even got the date here. So it's quite clear here that this version is based on a newer version than the initial betas, right? Because the initial betas came out well before this date. So which means that Beckhoff also upgraded the Visual Studio version here, or the base for the TCXE shell, which is, you know, I just think it's nice that it's so transparent and you see which version of Visual Studio this is actually based on. Because sometimes I know I find myself in finding some issues about, you know, a problem I have with the T6E shell, and then I think, oh shit, what's this? Why doesn't this work? And then I try, you know, I find that this is a problem with Visual Studio. But then, you know, I read through the forum and everything, you know, if you have a problem, whatever problem it might be, and I figure out that, okay, this was actually fixed in a certain version of Visual Studio, but I have no idea whether that's, you know, what version TwinCAT is running on. But now I know, so I can just, you know, kind of follow up, and if a new version of TwinCAT comes in the future, then, you know, I'll see which version of the T6, which version of Visual Studio it is based on, and then I can just upgrade it and know that that bug is going to be fixed. So a tiny thing, but still very nice. I want to finish this video by, you know, just thinking about one thing that is not clear to me yet, at least now, and it will surely be clear when they release the full version, is how do you manage the target devices, right? I mean, I have actually no idea how this is going to be working for the target device, because, you know, with the runtime and the, you know, so today when you, let's say, for example, you know, you're going to run a TwinCAT application that uses TCP/IP, for example, okay? Then you need the XAR on the PLC, you need to install the XAR. On top of that, you need to install the TF6310. I don't remember the number, but the TCP/IP application as well that manages the communication from the TwinCAT runtime to the TCP/IP layer of the operating system, or, you know, or the equivalent of the TCBSD package. And this is not entirely clear for me how this is going to work with 4026. You know, are you going to install? Do you still have to install some package manager on the PLC, or do you have everything on your development environment and then you transfer those applications to the PLC? No idea. So this is something I think will be super exciting once the full version is released. I'm not even sure whether it's possible to play around with this here. At least I have no idea how I would go about this, because as it is right now, I have the package manager, right? So here at my desktop, I have the package manager, or the, you know, or the TC package manager. So the CMD, this guy, which is the you have either this guy or the graphical version one, which is this one, but it's for my development environment. And am I supposed to use this one for putting stuff on the target device? No idea. And if any one of you have any ideas about this, how this is going to work in the next version of TwinCAT 4026, please let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that this is the last video about the TwinCAT beta. I hope there will not be a fourth version of the beta, but that the next video I make about 4026 will be about the final release. I want to give a big thank you for all my patrons and my YouTube members. You are just mwah, you are great. And if you are not a YouTube member or a patron, then I would really appreciate if you would consider becoming one. Thank you very much for watching this video. Look forward to see you in the next one, and happy coding.